What's up, guys? Week 5 just wrapped up. That means we are halfway through the season already. I cannot believe it. But there is so much to uncover in week 5, so let's get right to it. Let's just start by addressing the elephant in the room. 2 elephants, actually, because it is halfway through this season and nobody has been able to take down the Houston Roughnecks. The Seattle Dragons got close last week, but not without controversy, of course. PJ Walker and the Houston Roughnecks tried to take a knee to end the game, and it actually showed on replay that there were 2 seconds remaining on the clock still, meaning that the Seattle Dragons should have gotten the ball on the Houston's 23-yard line with a chance to tie the game with a 9-point play. If they would have scored a touchdown, gotten a 3-point conversion, they could have tied it and gone to overtime. An XFL rep actually came on air after saying that they did in fact make a mistake and it was too difficult to bring both teams back out on the field and just finish the game, which I think is a little ridiculous. And that XFL rep actually has been reassigned. Take it how you want it. And I'm pretty sure that the XFL will never allow anything like this to happen again, but I feel so bad for those Dragons fans. I actually don't know how much of a difference it would have made in the end when the Dragons have BJ Daniels starting as their quarterback. He actually didn't play that bad in the beginning. He led the Dragons to a 14-0 lead early. However, when Houston woke up, he really couldn't get much going through the air. He completed 14 of 22 passes for only 114 yards. In my view, he's a pretty big part of this Dragons downfall. However, on the defensive side of the ball, safety Jordan Martin came up with a huge third quarter interception off of PJ Walker. He also totaled 7 tackles and broke up 2 passes. In the end, though, just wasn't enough. Roughnecks fans, you can thank wide receiver Cam Phillips for that win. He played outstanding. He completed 10 catches for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns. In my hot take, he emerged as the most explosive and reliable skill position player in this league. And then, of course, you have to mention his quarterback, PJ Walker, who threw for 351 yards and 3 touchdowns. He impressed so much that the Seattle Seahawks sent a scout out to Houston to see him play live and in action. The DC Defenders beat the Battlehawks 15-6, and one of the biggest names in the XFL was benched during this game. Cardell Jones threw his 7th interception of the season, and really the Defenders had just seen enough. So they put in their 6'8" backup, Tyree Jackson, who really couldn't get the ball moving down the field, but he did open a presence that made for the most ground-focused game in XFL history. The 2 teams together totaled for 402 rush yards, the most of any XFL game. And the defense also played a huge role for the Defenders in this game. They held Jordan Ta'amu to 174 aerial yards throughout the game, while also making several key stops on 3rd and 4th down throughout the entire game. And then there's linebacker Jameer Thurman, who came in clutch with a blocked punt that was scooped up and taken to the end zone for a touchdown to seal this game. And honestly, with how much of a spark we saw Tyree Jackson bring to this team, don't be surprised if we see him starting under center for the Defenders next week. For the Battlehawks, they really got their run game going. Matt Jones and Christine Michael both put up about 70 yards each. And wide receiver LaDamian Washington actually put up pretty good numbers, 8 targets for 114 yards, but it really just wasn't enough for the Battlehawks, who are now 3-2 and in a 3-way tie for that top seed in the Eastern Conference. And of course, I can't go without mentioning the actual MVP of this game, the beer snake. DC Defender fans apparently think they can drink more beer than any other fan base in the XFL. That beer snake reached the entire height of the seating section. They even got a cup contribution from XFL Commissioner Oliver Luck. The Wildcats came back from an early 17-0 deficit to win the highest scoring game in XFL history, 41-34 against the Vipers. But the biggest storyline surrounding this game was quarterback Josh Johnson, who had a pretty good game. He completed 62% of his passes, threw 4 touchdowns and only 1 interception that came on his first throw of the game. But what really caught the XFL's attention was after his fourth touchdown, he was caught talking on the phone to his offensive coordinator, Norm Chow, who was up in the booth. And he said, quote, "You guys are doing way too much arguing and complaining. Stop it." Now, he's obviously had issues before with his LA coaches. He's had to tell them multiple times to calm down on the sideline, which isn't really what you want your quarterback having to tell your coaches. And with Nelson Spruce still out with the knee injury, wide receivers Jordan Smallwood and Saeed Blacknell stepped up when they were needed most. Smallwood completing a 54-yard pass and Blacknell a 48-yarder to set up the Wildcats on scoring drives. And then in the fourth, defensive tackle Reggie Howard came up with a big man interception, which are my favorite things in football. And then later, defensive back Jack Tocho sealed the victory with an INT on the Vipers' final drive. For Tampa, they're still working on playing a complete 4 quarters. Of course, they came out tough in the first half. Taylor Cornelius was completing big throws. He had a rushing touchdown. And then they quickly digressed in the second half, being outscored 21-10, making some very key turnovers. And to make matters worse, running back duo Davion Smith and Jacques Patrick, who normally blow it out of the water, combined for only 142 yards this game. The New York Guardians beat the Dallas Renegades 30-12, proving that head coach Bob Stoops can't win with Landry Jones or Philip Nelson. Stoops did express his frustrations earlier in the season for Jones's carelessness of the ball. Well, that just carried right on over to Philip Nelson, who only completed 28 of 57 passes and threw 2 interceptions. So it's right back to the drawing board for Coach Stoops and his coaching staff, who also made a move for their offensive line coach to become their offensive coordinator after Hal Mummy's injury in Week 4. Coach Stoops said that Mummy was just unable to perform in the way the Renegades needed after his injury. However, they will keep him as an advisor to their offense. The Guardians had a couple standout players this week, starting with wide receiver Colby Pearson, who came into Week 5 only having 11 catches and 128 yards all season. Well, this man about doubled his stats this weekend with 5 catches for 95 yards and an incredible 80-yard catch and run touchdown. And then you have defensive tackle Kayvon Walker, who extended his league lead in sacks to 4.5 with not 1, but 2 sacks against Nelson. And have the Guardians found their QB1? Luis Perez impressed again, starting with that 80-yard reception to Colby Pearson that we just talked about. And then he put up 21 consecutive points against one of the toughest defenses in this league. Matt McGloin just might be out of a job. That just about wraps up Week 5, and I am so excited to see what Week 6 brings. I will meet you right back here next week.